On day 2 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is the capital city of Kyiv that's under siege. On your screens are images of the Ukrainian military personnel out on the streets of Kyiv, sending a message that the Ukrainian government is still very much in charge. This after Russian air defense systems and missiles were seen targeting apartment complexes in the city. Joining us now live on this broadcast are our correspondents who are on the ground. We've got Gaurav Sawant in Mariupol, that's in the east of Ukraine. We've got Maria Sarenko, she's in Kyiv, in the capital of Ukraine. And we've got Rajesh Pawar joining us as well. I want to go across to Maria Sarenko first in Kyiv. We're seeing these images of Ukrainian military personnel, Maria, out on the streets. Is it really an effort to send a message that the Ukrainian army is still very much in charge of the capital city?
Yes, sure. And that is not only the way to send the message, it is really so. You can see military and also territorial defense people all around the capital. And just as we are speaking, you can hear the sounds of sirens, the air alarm which is going on here in the city center, which means that in several minutes we have to hide somewhere in bomb shelter or any type of parking possible. So the situation in Kyiv is tough, and this is what we have just heard about from the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko. He says that yes, the Kyiv is now entering the stage of defense and the armed forces are entering the capital. So this is what is going on and what we will be seeing in the coming several hours, I guess. So every military experts I've spoken to, all the officials are saying that today is the day of Kyiv defense, the day when Russian army tries to combat and to take control over the capital, and the armed forces of Ukraine are ready and prepared to do so that they repel this attack. So the siren is still going on. The military people are walking in the streets really
Gaurav Sawant joins us. And Gaurav, not since the Second World War have we seen very often scenes of an army as powerful as that of Russia trying to invade a country as big as Ukraine or mounting an assault on a city like Kyiv. This is a bustling capital city, a metropolitan in a very significant country. It's not a small nation, as it were. Nobody's covered as many wars and conflicts in modern day television quite as much as you have. So give me a sense at the start of how you think the Putin military campaign at a strategic overview level is going 48 hours since he started this ingress.
Rahul, this is a textbook campaign, a relentless assault to achieve an aim. And look at how it's proceeding. It's proceeding from multiple flanks. You have Russian tanks on the streets of Odessa in the south. You have the Russian flotilla targeting Ukrainian forces from sea. You have an air assault that is taking place. You have artillery that is attacking. You have missiles, both ballistic and cruise missiles, that are relentlessly targeting military installations. It's a textbook mission that's being carried out. 14 major airfields across Ukraine have been targeted, majority in the east, some in the west. A major airfield in Kyiv, barely 10 kilometers from Kyiv, could well be a staging point for Russian forces. Russian special forces, the Spetsnaz, they moved in to this area. You also have heli-borne operations that are taking place. You have tanks on the outskirts of Kyiv that the Ukrainian army had to blow up a bridge on the Dnieper to ensure that the Russians could be stalled, the advance could be stalled. So from Odessa all the way to Chernobyl, you have Russians in control, and now on the outskirts of Kyiv. Now this just goes on to show that this is a textbook campaign. They planned well, they planned for long, they did not go into the rhetoric the way Ukraine did, and now there's a situation that the Ukrainian president is saying that they can hold on maximum for 96 hours unless the world intervenes, or Russians will succeed and the Iron Curtain will actually expand from Russia. I mean, that's a reference to Soviet Union, the Iron Curtain, and saying this Ukraine will become a part of the Iron Curtain unless the world intervenes, and perhaps it might just be a bit too late for that.
You're in the eastern part of Ukraine, in Mariupol, which is where President Putin announced that the statelets would get recognition, at least from Moscow. Give us a sense of how life's been for you over the past 48 hours. All of us in the newsroom very concerned about your personal safety and that of our crew in Ukraine at this time. So how have things been for you, Gaurav?
So the moment we landed here, the moment we reached here in Mariupol, we headed straight to the front lines, and the Ukrainian army, they permitted us, they showed us where they were in trenches, and this is like trench warfare. It's virtually like you'd see in Second World War movies, soldiers in Europe in trenches, their armored personal carriers next to them, their tanks around them, Grad multi-barrel rocket launchers. We've seen Grad 21 in Kargil war, Rahul, the same Russian Grads. Now you have those upgraded Grads here, systems which fire much longer distances. Smerch, the Ukrainian systems are deployed in this area, and they are waiting for that big battle. Like even when you and I are speaking, there are these bombs that are going off, artillery shells that are going off in the background, and this is where this campaign is going. Now, initially it was thought that this is where the Russians will start, because Donetsk and Luhansk are two areas where they liberated it, as they said, called it independent republic. 70% remains in Ukrainian control, and it was expected that they would roll down here. They've actually gone in for a pincer move. They've gone for the jugular. They've gone straight for Kyiv, a multi-pronged offensive, and in just under 48 hours, they're on the outskirts of Kyiv. So this just goes on to show that this is a campaign that they've carried out very effectively, initially suppressing the adversary's air defenses almost completely. Of course, the images that we are putting out on our screens, Rahul, very clearly show that when the Russian missiles were coming in, the Ukrainian anti-missile system, it was effective. It destroyed an incoming missile, and that shows the effectiveness of the S-300 system. Of course, there are also images that show an S-300 system destroyed. So this is like a huge battle that's currently on for the control of Kyiv, and President Zelensky now asking President Putin to come in for dialogue is an indication that he wants to stall the advance or perhaps stall the inevitable.
Rajesh Pawar, you've been a military man yourself. This airborne assault and then very quick mechanized ingress towards Kyiv. Did the Ukrainian army not anticipate such a situation? Have they been caught off guard, or is the sheer military force that Putin has unleashed so significant that there's very little that the Ukrainians could have done, no matter how much they wargame this?
Look, Rahul, Ukrainian army is not a small army. It has more than 200,000 regulars plus reserves now being called in. It's quite a powerful army, and it could have given a good fight to the Russians. And as we talked on this channel earlier, when they asked me how long will it take, I said probably it will take Russia a week before it takes over Kyiv. But it seems like the Ukrainian army folded up in less than 3 days. As far as the Russian response is concerned, I think they had planned it very well, and they upped it notch by notch every time. Initially, it was precision strikes, avoiding civilian targets totally, and then waiting for response from Kyiv. When it didn't come, then they moved ahead with the ground offensive. And this is not a conventional ground offensive like army capturing the whole area and then moving forward. These are special forces operations. These are not typical armored operations or infantry operations. They are special forces operations targeting specific objectives of tactical importance, of strategic importance, and then sending a message to the Ukrainian government that probably they won't be able to hold on for too long and they must negotiate. And as we see, they have actually succeeded in that. They have brought Zelensky to the point where he is now begging for negotiations. Rahul.
Now, that's the other critical question. Will the president of Ukraine accept the offer for negotiation? So we have a lot to talk about in this live broadcast over the next 3 hours. But I want to show you what's happening on the ground, because since early morning, the Kyiv skyline has been lit up with Russian air defense systems and missiles. The Ukrainian capital, which till yesterday witnessed massive traffic jams and panic-stricken citizens lining up outside ATMs and supermarkets, now resembles a ghost town.
Day 2 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine saw its air defense systems firing across Kyiv's skyline. what looked like a residential building was on fire. Ukraine says the attacks were carried out by Russian cruise or ballistic missiles. After hours of early morning attack, this is what Kyiv looked like after sunrise. India Today, the only channel reporting from ground zero, captured the devastating and haunting images.
This is the ground floor, let's say, or the first floor, and there was a guy inside. It's a sleeping room, this one, with a balcony. And there was a guy sleeping inside when the rocket landed here. And he's fine, but in a shock. But it happened when he was asleep. I cannot even imagine what it feels like to be sleeping and you wake up and this happens at your home.
Sirens sounded across Kyiv as residents were told to seek refuge in air raid shelters.
People have been sitting here from 5 o'clock in the morning, right after these loud explosions have been heard in the city center. So not all of them really want to talk or show their faces because the situation now is really tense and everybody understands that the worst probably is yet to come.
Several residents were seen fleeing into bomb shelters, metros and subway stations, as the streets of Kyiv remain deserted.
I'm almost in a bomb shelter. Therefore, in any minute, I can switch off. A few minutes ago, we've heard a heavy shelling, a heavy sound, kind of bombing. At 4 a.m. in the morning, there was attack over Kyiv, but our anti-aircraft system protected Kyiv citizens.
Meanwhile, Ukraine president confirmed that Kyiv is under siege and that Russian forces have entered the city. He issued a stern warning that the Russian armed forces would seize Kyiv within 96 hours, bringing a new iron curtain down on Europe.
They have declared me public enemy number 1 and my family enemy number 2. They want to destroy Ukraine politically by destroying the head of the state.
Across Ukraine, explosions were reported.
Viewers can hear this. This is Mariupol. You hear a series. Hear this sound. Hear this sound. This is Mariupol.
Russian tanks entered the port city of Odessa and wrested control of Chernobyl. With Gaurav Sawant in Mariupol, Maria Pysarenko and Jan Husar in Kyiv, Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining us live from Moscow this evening for a perspective from Russia is Oleg Dmitriev, advisor at the Sputnik news agency. We've got Rakesh Sood, well-known, distinguished Indian diplomat, fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. We've also got Major General Sanjay Meston for a military perspective on the hostilities that we're seeing. I want to go across to Oleg Dmitriev first for the sense from Moscow on how the operations over the past 2 days have gone. We're seeing the Ukrainian president seek negotiation. Is that to suggest that the Russian army has been able to proceed along the battle plans that they've drawn up?
Well, actually, there was a response from President Zelensky. It was in the media that he was seeking negotiations. But the problem with this campaign, the problem with what is happening right now, that people do not get enough from official sources. Russia provides official sources, Ukraine provides official sources, but there are not so many official statements that come through official channels. So that is the problem of this campaign: how to trust information, how to verify it. Because I've been tracking the messages from Mr. Zelensky's office that were coming on different channels, and every message was kind of different. One of them said that he was seeking negotiations. Another message said that he was seeking the status of Ukraine is a neutral country. and there were no official confirmations so far within 2 or 3 hours. So that is the problem of this campaign, that people do not really do not really identify the official source where the information is coming from. And another thing is that most of the pictures that are spreading around the conflict, both in Russia and the Ukraine, they are not confirmed, they are not very well verified. So there are 2 or 3 Telegram channels, unofficial Telegram channels in Russia and the Ukraine that provide adequate point of view to what is happening inside the Ukraine right now.
Okay, let me go across to Major General Sanjay Meston. For a military perspective on the military operations so far, you know, it's very difficult to imagine the full Russian army coming in and being able to hold the landmass of Ukraine, given the fact that many in the local population are very hostile towards the Russians, given that this couldn't happen in Afghanistan, where the American military had far more advanced capabilities vis-a-vis the Afghan enemy. Here, you've got 2 armies. There is a sense of the Russian army being much stronger, but the Ukrainian army also has modern weapon systems, unlike the Taliban. And therefore, are you surprised at the speed at which the Russians have been making advances so far, General Meston?
Rahul, good evening. Yes, definitely. I'm not too surprised also. See, if we just go back a few days ago, statements emanating by President Putin were that we are never going to invade or occupy Ukraine. So that itself...
No, but surely Zelensky didn't believe that, given the force of deployments that were happening all across the Ukrainian-Russian border. Surely Zelensky and the Ukrainian army wasn't believing what Putin was saying, regardless of what they were saying on record.
Yeah, definitely. Even the Western media and, of course, the Americans had predicted that between 16th to 20th, the offensive will be launched. So there was no doubt on that. But perhaps yet, I think most of the world and most of the analysts did feel probably something will be only happen or be confined to the eastern sector, that is the Donbas sector. But probably nothing will happen in the rest of Ukraine, because it has international ramifications, and expectations were there that NATO will interfere. But I think somewhere President Zelensky had gone wrong. He has, he was thinking that there would be NATO support, and that is what probably gave him also a little leeway to be taking these things for granted. And especially the last visit
But NATO gave no indication to suggest that they'd actually come in and militarily support his pushback against the Russians. So if that's the straw he was clinging on to, that's rather naive.
Yeah, I do agree, because it was rather naive, because, this is actually known as the shaping of the battlefield and shaping the minds of the enemy commanders. And I think here probably he has had some kind of a mistaken notion that probably, Ukraine, the main Kyiv, etc., probably will not be tackled. And this is where even I'm quite convinced the Western world was not thinking that they will go on a full-fledged offensive. And the moment the offensive even started, it was expected that NATO will do some kind of a military interference, not boots on ground, but definitely, some kind of missiles or launching of air, at least even in Belarus. But nothing has happened, and therefore he has, the resistance has really lacked. See, no army can fight without support and without much preparation. So therefore, all his logistics, etc., probably were not prepared the way the Russians had prepared, because see, they had, in the garb of exercise, they were well prepared. And let me tell you, even when they were deployed for the exercises in Belarus and other areas, the way the troops were deployed, it was just like for training, because there was no dispersal, there was no camouflage concealment. So that itself was a good deception by the Russians, and that is what has deceived the Ukrainians, and they have been actually surprised to some extent.
Now, Mr. Rakesh Sood, I want your sense of what's playing out in the diplomatic front. The moment President Zelensky invites President Putin for talks, it's clear to the world that he doesn't think the Russian army can be held off for much longer. From what you know of all of what's known about Putin in the public domain, is that an offer he would at all consider, or he'll want to kick the enemy when he's down?
I saw a comment attributed to Foreign Minister Lavrov rejecting the sort of offer or whatever the offer was, which was made in some kind of a media interaction, I believe. So I don't think there is much left for it, because I think you need to go back to what Putin really wants. And it is quite clear that, I mean, if it was just the Ukraine joining NATO, then perhaps the offer of a neutral Ukraine or something like that was would have addressed it. But I think President Putin's desire is obviously something deeper and greater, as was clear from the speech that he gave on Monday evening. You know, when they announced the recognition of the sovereign people's republics of the two provinces, Luhansk and Donetsk. So he obviously looks at it as a far more ambitious project. And I don't think, therefore, it is a question of negotiations any longer with President Zelensky.
Okay, I'm going to take a very quick break. We'll go back live to Ukraine. Gaurav Sawant is with us from Mariupol, which has seen firing and fighting between the Russian and the Ukrainian army, and we'll get you details of what's happening on the ground. We'll also try and focus a bit on what could Putin's endgame possibly be, and also there's Chernobyl, the infamous nuclear reactor known the world over for its radioactivity and leakages in the mid-80s. Now it's been taken over by Russia, and therefore what's the risk of hostilities at Chernobyl? Details coming up on the other side. Stay with us.